Here is my father's pruning shear. It hasn't been used for a long time, so now it is heavily rusted. The blades are covered with reddish-brown rust, blotched like an abstract painting, with none of their former shine left. The joint is completely stiff, rust clinging tightly, and every attempt to open feels like a wrestling match accompanied by a creaking sound straight out of a horror movie. The metal handles are also speckled with rust. Touching them feels rough and leaves reddish stains on the hand, along with an unpleasant metallic, fishy smell. Today I'm going to share with you how to restore rusty items. So stay tuned, watch the video until the end, and you'll see how I bring these old, rusty tools back to life. The first step is to take everything apart. I carefully loosen the screw at the joint, separating the two rusty blades. Piece by piece, the shear starts to come apart. The spring, the bolt, and even the washers, all coated in stubborn rust. Once everything is separated, I put all the parts into a small container. The rusty blades, the spring, the screw, and the washers. All of them are now gathered in one box, ready for the cleaning process. First, I pour vinegar into the container, making sure all the rusty parts are fully submerged. The acidic vinegar will start breaking down the rust, slowly eating away at the reddish-brown layer that has built up over the years. Next, I add baking soda into the container. As soon as it touches the vinegar, it starts fizzing and bubbling, creating a little chemical reaction right on the rusty surface. The foam spreads around the blades and parts, helping to loosen the rust even further. It's like the tool is getting a deep cleaning bath. After that, I spray a bit of WD-40 into the container. The oil seeps into the joints, bolts, and every rusty corner, helping to loosen corrosion even more. It also adds protective layer, making sure the metal won't rust back quickly once it's cleaned. I leave everything soaking until the water changes color. That's the sign the rust is breaking down and dissolving into the liquid. Now, I'm going to make a simple tool to sharpen the blades. Since the edges are completely dull, I'll need something that can grind away the rough surface and restore a sharp cutting edge. I measure out a small piece of wood, about 6 centimeters long. Next, I saw along the marked line on the wooden piece. Cutting carefully, I make sure the edges are straight and even. Next, I take a smaller piece of wood that fits snugly into the hole I previously drilled. I cut a piece of wood to match the length of the smaller block I just prepared. I use super glue along with a sprinkle of baking soda to secure the pieces together. The combination hardens almost instantly, creating a strong bond that holds the wooden parts firmly in place. Now the base for my sharpening tool is solid and ready for the next step. Next, I add a piece of rubber inner tube. This makes it easier to hold and control the sharpening tool while working on the blades. preventing your hands from slipping and adding a bit of cushioning during the process. Next, I add a piece of rubber in a tube. I flip the sandpaper back rubber side outward and attach it to the drill chuck, securing it firmly. The sharpening tool is now ready to be used with the drill, turning it into a simple rotary sander that can efficiently grind and sharpen the dull blades. I use double-sided tape to secure the rubber piece in place. To sharpen the pruning shear, I'll be using two types of sandpaper. First, a coarser grit to grind away the rust and reshape the edge, followed by a finer grit to smooth and polish the blade, restoring its sharpness and giving it a clean, precise cutting edge. Next, I measure and cut the sandpaper to fit both the rubber section and the wooden tip of the tool. By trimming it precisely to match the surfaces, I ensure full contact with the blade during sharpening, making the process more effective and uniform. I carefully stick the cut pieces of sandpaper onto the rubber and wooden parts of the tool, pressing firmly. I make sure there are no air bubbles and that the paper is fully adhered. With this, the sharpening tool is ready to use, combining the flexibility of the rubber and the stability of the wood for an efficient grind on the pruning shear blades. I secure the wooden stick in the drill chuck just like a drill bit, making sure it's tight and centered. This setup allows the sandpaper-covered end to spin smoothly when the drill is powered on, turning it into a functional rotary sharpening tool. I turn on the drill to test the setup and see if everything is stable. The sandpaper spins smoothly, with no wobbling or slipping, which means the sharpening tool is ready to tackle the dull pruning shear blades safely and effectively. Next, I apply a small amount of polishing wax onto the fine grit sandpaper. This helps reduce friction, give a smoother finish, and makes the final sharpening pass more effective, leaving the blade polished and ready for precise cutting. Now, I return to the pruning shear after it's finished reacting with the vinegar, baking soda, and WD-40 mixture. The rust has loosened considerably, and the water has turned dark, showing that the corrosion is coming off. It's time to take the blades out and start cleaning and scrubbing them for the next step. The rust has started to flake off. But there's still a thin layer clinging to the surface of the blades. I'll use fine grit sandpaper to scrub it away, gently removing the remaining corrosion and smoothing the metal, preparing it for sharpening and polishing. Using the fine grit sandpaper, I gently rub the blades. The remaining rust flakes off easily, revealing the shiny metal underneath. The surface starts to gleam, showing the blade's original brightness and smoothness coming back to life. I continue cleaning the blades, carefully removing any leftover rust particles and dust from sanding. After cleaning off all the rust, it's time to sharpen the blade. Using the DIY sharpening tool, of course, and then fine sandpaper, I carefully grind along the edge, restoring its sharpness. The blade is still a bit dull and rough, so I start with coarse sanding first. Grinding along the edge, I focus on removing uneven spots and shaping the blade, preparing it for the finer sharpening that will make it truly sharp and smooth. Before sharpening, I spray a little water on the blade. This helps reduce friction and heat buildup while grinding, preventing the metal from overheating and ensuring a smoother, more controlled sharpening process. The coarse sanding or rough grinding serves several purposes. It removes the remaining rust, smooths out deep nicks or uneven spots, and reshapes the blade's edge. Essentially, it lays a foundation for a sharp, precise edge, making the subsequent fine sanding and polishing much more effective. After the coarse sanding, I switch to the fine grit sandpaper. Gently rubbing the blade, I smooth out the roughness left from the first pass. The edge becomes sharper, cleaner, and more polished, gradually restoring the pruning shear to its functional, precise condition. Fine sanding serves to smooth out the rough surface left by the coarse grind, refining the blade's edge and removing any tiny burrs. Applying polishing wax onto the fine grit sandpaper further enhances this process. The wax reduces friction, helps the sandpaper glide more smoothly over the metal, and gives the blade a polished, shiny finish while protecting it from minor scratches. After sharpening, the blade is noticeably sharp and gleaming. The metal catches the light, reflecting a bright, smooth surface that shows it has been restored from its rusty, dull state. It's now ready to make clean, precise cuts again, looking almost like new. Once the blades are sharpened and cleaned, I start reassembling all the parts. Carefully putting back the spring, bolt, and washers, I make sure each piece fits snugly and moves smoothly. Step by step, the pruning shear comes back together. After reassembling, I test the movement of the pruning shear. The blades open and close smoothly, with the spring working perfectly and the joint no longer stiff or squeaky. It feels solid in hand, showing that the restoration has successfully brought it back to full functionality. To test the sharpness, I first try cutting a piece of paper. The blade slices through effortlessly, clean and precise, without any tearing. This simple test shows that the pruning shear is now properly sharpened and ready for real gardening tasks. The blade cuts through smoothly, cleanly slicing the tough material without crushing it. This demonstrates the restored sharpness and strength of the pruning shear, proving it's ready for various tough cutting tasks. The final result is a sharp, gleaming, and fully functional tool ready for any gardening task. It's amazing how a little patience, the right materials, and some DIY creativity can bring an old, forgotten tool back to life. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this transformation and want to see more DIY restorations. Finally, I test the pruning shear on a real branch. The blade sliced through effortlessly, leaving a clean, precise cut without crushing the wood. Seeing it work perfectly after all the cleaning, sharpening, and polishing makes the restoration process truly satisfying, turning a rusty, dull tool into a sharp, functional pruning shear once again. In summary, this rusty pruning shear has been completely restored. From removing heavy rust, cleaning and sanding the blades, to sharpening and polishing them,